told myself that I already had enough TBR challenges going on this year. Between my monthly TBR game, various readathons, and the year-long challenges that I signed up for in January, and then again with Our Fantasy at the beginning of April, but I really just couldn't turn this one down. Ren at the Reading Wren has put together an Our Fantasy inspired bingo board with a similar setup and rules, but one that is focused entirely on reading queer books and queer authors. I love Ren's channel, but somehow I'd managed to miss the announcement video for this, so I'd also really like to thank Annie at the Aloe Bear and Clint at Reads Readers for putting together a reading vlog and TBR post, respectively, that really pushed this back onto my feed and got my attention. As you can see, we've got a 5x5 board and the rules are pretty similar to Our Fantasy, with a few tweaks. For each book, either the author or the main character has to be queer. We're not allowed to use side characters to count. We have that same Our Fantasy rule where it's only one prompt per book, but in this board, we're not allowed any rereads or DNFs. You are allowed to swap one prompt for a free space, but the prompts that are LGBTQI+ focused, such as the lesbian or the intersex prompts, those you can't switch out. TBR that I've put together I am quite proud of. Quite a few of the books are things that I already had on TBRs this year already, especially for the Our Fantasy bingo board, so hopefully there's quite a lot of overlap, and working on this board will just prompt me to make sure that I do get to them. For all the other squares, the vast majority, bar I think maybe one book, are either things that I already own and have sitting on my shelves, or they're things that I have on my Goodreads TBR list that I'd already been eyeing up and interested in. I think there's one book that I had to search for something and I've added it now, but I'll let you know that when we get to it. The first prompt is a book with an animal in the title, and for that I'll be reading The Silverbirds by Apolline Lucy. This has the most stunning watercolour style desaturated cover that really caught my eye. On a cursed island where birds steal hearts and blades of grass cut deeper than knives, two young women driven by revenge take on solving a series of mysterious deaths. Silverbirds is a queer, enemies to lovers dark fantasy novel which features conflicted characters filled with rage and wants for revenge, yet fiercely protective of the ones they trust enough to love. There's no good and evil, but rather a beautifully dark grey where monsters who aren't really monsters live. So there's a real sibling aspect to this in that one of our protagonists' brother has went missing, but it also looks like it is going to be full of feminist rage and revenge, and I am all about those morally grey protagonists. The next prompt was to read a book that doesn't involve a coming out, and honestly I think this might be one of the harder ones to find. But I've picked Where the Shadows Hide by Amy Clarkin. This is the third book in the What Walks These Halls trilogy. It follows a paranormal investigative team based out of Ireland as they go looking at various haunted locations. There are multiple queer characters in the book, and I think because we have this team that know each other well, we're 2 books in, but also most of the characters have known each other from childhood, I don't foresee there being any coming out. PSI, Paranormal Surveillance Ireland, are in deep water. When the operators of a luxury cruise ship ask for their help with a series of unexplainable events, Raven and the team are hopeful that this case, for once, won't endanger their lives. Then we have a picture book, and way to go Ren for pushing me out of my comfort zone, because middle grade as it is a real challenge for me nowadays. Going right down to picture book was hard, but I actually did already have one on my shelves and I just haven't got around to reading it. I bought it because I actually met the author. We had a day out in Edinburgh together and I picked up the book because it just came out. We bought it together and I've been keeping it set aside for when one of my friends with babies, when their kids are old enough to start reading, then I can gift it to them. So it's been waiting to be read and this would be my chance to do that. This is The Big Day by Rachel Plummer and illustrated by Forrest Burdett. This is filled with poetry and it is about a little kid who gets invited to a magical queer wedding. The book has some interactive elements in there. There's pop-ups and lift the flaps and it looks beautiful and it should be an easy read. Then we have a one-word title, and I'm straight up lifting this from my R Fantasy board, which has the same prompt, and for that I picked Romantasy by Mare Roche. I'm gonna put that here too. I said before, the tagline for this one grabbed me. It's 2 heroes, 1 brain cell. The cover art is gorgeous, and the whole thing just seems like it's gonna be a really queer, joy-filled fantasy with a friends to lovers and found family storyline. Romantasy is a cozy queer fantasy about the mortifying ordeal of being known by your totally platonic best friend and the epic quest that might force you to confront the truth. I love how colourful this cover is. I love the just whimsy of the design. I think it's going to be a fantastic read. I'm really looking forward to it, and I had been planning to read it in the next couple of months anyway for the Our Fantasy Bingo. Final prompt on that line is to read a book by an Aussie author, and for this one I have picked Tallowood by N.R. Walker. This is an Australian author writing about queer characters in Australia, so I'm hoping that maybe I get extra bonus kudos for this one. About a Sydney detective who works cold cases and comes to believe that a string of suicides he's been investigating might actually be the work of one of Australia's greatest serial killers. It's been a while since I really read these kind of darker crime type novels rather than mysteries, but I think it could be quite refreshing. On the next row, the first prompt is a new release, and for that I am going to put one of my most anticipated reads of the year, The Salt King by Natasha Pulley, that comes out in August. This is a novel about religion, belief and the power of myth that blends the gripping end-of-the-world storytelling of The Passage with Natasha Pulley's biting wit and queer romance. We are following a Jesuit priest and a doctor as they team up to investigate a phenomenon called salt light that is having strange effects across the world. As salt light devastates cities, Evelyn must decide what to believe and whether his faith is strong enough to withstand an apocalypse. I've enjoyed every Natasha Pulley book I've read so far. I think she has a really unique writing style and way of coming in at stories and throwing in lots of things that you maybe wouldn't have expected. The last book I read from her was The Mars House, and I was completely blown away by it. So I'm really excited to read this new release. Then we have an outfit on the cover that you would wear, which I think is such a fun prompt. I'm really not a clothes and dressing up type of person, but I think I would wear the blue jumper outfit that is on Arthur and Teddy Are Coming Out by Ryan Love. When 79-year-old Arthur Edward gathers his family together to share some important news, no one is prepared for the bombshell he drops. He's gay, and after a lifetime in the closet, he's finally ready to come out. Arthur's 21-year-old grandson, Teddy, has a secret of his own. He's also gay and developing serious feelings for his colleague Ben, but Teddy doesn't feel ready to come out yet, especially when Arthur's announcement causes shockwaves in the family. Arthur and Teddy have always been close, and now they must navigate first love, heartbreak, and finding their place in the community. But can they and their family learn to accept who they truly are? This one has been on my shelf for a while. I grabbed it as I think a pre-release because it sounded really interesting, and I do really like the cover. I just don't read a lot of, I don't know if this is lit fic, but it is verging into that contemporary lit fic kind of dramatic sphere. When I read contemporary, it tends just to be rom-coms and romances, so it's a little bit outside my comfort zone. But I do think I'll enjoy it, and I am really interested in that cross-generational bond that we've got going on. Then we have something that is under 1,000 ratings, and for this one I'm going to be putting in a short story by Johannes T. Evans, who is one of my favourite trans short story authors. The one I've picked, because I have a whole ton of them sitting on my Kindle from various sales, is Ambitious Men. This one is a horror story, which I think will be a nice mix in with some of the other genres I have planned. Deeply messed up fantasy horror wherein a man finds his dream of taking over his hero's restaurant is not to proceed as smoothly as he hoped. It's a short summary, but considering it's only 48 pages, that's all I want to know. Then we have emotion in the title as the prompt. And for this, I'm putting Like in Love with You by Emma R. Albin. This came out in January. I bought it when it was a new release. I've still not read it. This is pitched as Mean Girls meets Northanger Abbey. It's a sapphic rivals to lovers Regency romance with kind of helicopter mamas trying to influence their daughters into being rivals, into trying to one up each other, and what that forced rivalry blossoms into. The last prompt on the second row is a book published in the decade that you were born. And for this one, I'm so grateful because this has worked so well. It's a book that I wanted to read for years but was always exorbitantly expensive to get hold of because it went out of print years ago and was only available in physical format from a very few people who had collected it. It was way too expensive to even consider buying, but it very recently came out as a Kindle release and the price point is much more reasonable. This is Gaywick by Vincent Varga, the first gay gothic romance. I love a good gothic romance, and as we've been starting very recently to start to see some queer ones breaking through the market, I've really enjoyed them, but I think it'll be fascinating to see this one that started it. I really don't know much about the plot itself because a lot of the descriptions just talk about how revolutionary the book is, but I've been wanting to read it and it fits perfectly. Plus, if I didn't pick this one, I honestly don't know what I would pick from the 80s, so at least I didn't read this a couple of months ago. Gaywick, the first gay gothic romance, treads firmly in beloved territory, both honouring it and reinventing it. Classic in style, Vincent Varga creates a world as authentic as anything penned by Du Maurier, retaining the creaking ancestral mansion and mysterious and brooding master of the manor, while replacing the traditional damsel in distress with the young and handsome Robert White. On the third row, our first prompt is 5 or more words in the title, and I've picked In Case You Read This by Edward Underhill. This is a trans rom-com about serendipity, chance encounters, and the ultimate missed connection. We have two characters who meet by chance in a Nebraskan motel and find that they have very important things in common. As well as being trans, they are both massive fans of the same band. They spend one night together and then have to go their own separate ways, and this is just about can they and will they reconnect. I really enjoyed Underhill's Always the Almost, and I have one of his other books on my NetGalley TBR, so I'm really hoping that this one's going to be a success. I also almost considered this book for the next prompt, which is a character that has hobbies. But I decided instead of going with that music fan angle, I would go with baking. And I picked Love at 350 Degrees by Lisa Pierce. When an unexpected and forbidden attraction starts to simmer between judge and contestant on the set of a TV baking competition, both women must decide what they're willing to risk for the ultimate prize in this debut rom-com. I love British Bake Off. I watch it every year while complaining about every single aspect of it, and I really like fiction set at baking contests. I've read a few now, and I think my favourite so far, unsurprisingly, is Alexis Hall. Paris Delanicourt is about to crumble, and I'm really hoping that I'll get some of that in this one as well. For the BIPOC author prompt, I'm going to read Soft on Soft by Mina Waheed. This is a shorter one, about 150 pages, which I think is a good idea to be mixing in with some of these bigger books that I have planned. We are following a reclusive makeup influencer and an actress slash model. This is a contemporary fluffy piece where one homebody and one extrovert make one hell of a love story. It's been on my Kindle for a while now and I've just never gotten around to it. So again, we're working through that TBR backlist and trying to use some things that I already own. Next prompt is a manga. Again, something that I'll pick up now and again, but maybe not just because I don't get to them as often as I would like. For this one, I'm putting The Marble Queen by Anna Kopp and illustrated by Gabrielle Carey. The Marble Queen is a YA fantasy graphic novel that's the political drama of Nimona meets the heartfelt romance of the prince and the dressmaker, but this time in a sapphic romance surrounded by a mist of magic. In this, we have a princess sent away from her country to an arranged marriage, but when she gets there, she finds that it's not a prince waiting for her, but a queen. The last prompt on the row is to read a book set in a different country, and for this, I've picked Cubs and Campfires by Dylan Drakes. I followed this author on Instagram, and I have since, I think, before he started publishing. I love his content, but I've never actually read one of his books. I know his first book was a multi-POV, rich, dark, mythology-inspired fantasy, but then he's since segued into more contemporary rom-coms with quite a bit of spice in them. So I'm gonna try this one and see whether I want to keep reading in this Sweet and Stocky series or whether I want to go back and find that first fantasy novel. Cubs and Campfires is a sweet and spicy romance about chunky men, cozy woods, and cuddles under the starlight. We are following a struggling journalism graduate who takes the most isolated job he can, a fire lookout in the rural and picturesque mountains of Washington state. All those dreams of isolation, though, get thrown up against a brick wall when a flirty musician decides to camp up next door. The first prompt on the fourth row, I'm not bending the rules, but I may be bending the rules in my head a little. For this one, I've put Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. It is book 2 of 2 in her Royals series. I haven't read the first one and I don't plan to. I bought this one a while ago and I actually don't know why. I think it was for a challenge several years ago that had a book with sunglasses on the cover as a challenge prompt, and this one came up. I saw it was queer, it was sapphic, and I decided to buy it, and then I just never got round to it. Now, while I've not been having as much success with YA books recently, that's not where my worry comes in with this one. My issue is that the love interest is the Princess of Scotland, so that's not a thing. We'll see how it goes. I suspect it's gonna over fantasize Scotland the way that I tend to hate in books. Millie Quint is devastated when she discovers that her sort of best friend, sort of girlfriend has been kissing someone else. And because Millie cannot stand the thought of confronting her ex every day, she decides to apply for scholarships to boarding schools, the further from Houston the better. Millie can't believe her luck when she's accepted into one of the most exclusive schools located in the rolling Highlands of Scotland. Everything about Scotland is different. The country is misty and green, the school is gorgeous, and the students think Americans are cute. I can guarantee they don't. The only problem, Millie's roommate Flora is a total princess. She's also an actual princess of Scotland. Why not just put this in a fantasy world? They can barely stand each other. Flora's high class and high key, but before Millie knows it, she has another sort of best friend, sort of girlfriend. Even though Princess Flora could be a new chapter in her life, Millie knows the chances of happily ever after are slim. After all, real life isn't a fairy tale, or is it? We will see. We will see. If this doesn't work for me, I suppose technically I could move the Psychic Investigation Ireland book in here and then find another book without a coming out. Other than that, I don't know that I have any queer series where I am still waiting to read the last book, unless I happen to catch up with Game Changers in the space of the next year, which is also a possibility. The second prompt was mentioned on a 5 Friday video. This is a series of videos that Ren puts out of recommendations. The one that I have picked is Caroline's Heart by Austen Chant. I absolutely loved and will forever advocate for reading Peter Darling by this author. It's a gorgeous retelling of Peter Pan with a trans character. I read it back when it was indie published. It has since, I think it's still indie, but has been republished in a new edition with a new cover. You should probably check it out. This one is only 160 pages and it is a Wild West romance. So again, something I wouldn't maybe normally pick up, but I am excited to give a try. Caroline is dead, leaving her lover with nothing but the clockwork heart that once beat in her chest. But Cecily, a witch of unconventional reputation, is not one to be defeated by the laws of nature. After years of careful assembly, her resurrection spell is nearly complete and grows more powerful by the day. When Cecily meets Roy, a soft-spoken cowboy who shares a strange kinship with Caroline, Cecily thinks she's finally found the key to bringing her lover back. But when Roy is mortally wounded, she finds herself torn between finishing the resurrection spell and saving the life of a stranger. Next, we have a non-fiction book, and again, I have more than I need on my shelves because I add them, I buy them, and then I don't read them. So again, a book that I have had for a long time, it would be great for me to actually read it, is Immodest Acts by Judith C. Brown. I think I've had this on TBRs before. This is the life of a lesbian nun in Renaissance Italy. Do I know anything about it other than that subtitle? No, I don't, but that was enough to grab my attention. The next prompt is simply lesbian, and I would have thought this would be a really easy prompt to fill, but it's made a bit harder by sometimes I find that a lot of books are marketed as sapphic rather than explicitly whether they're lesbian or not. I'm planning to read this anyway, and it is one of my highly anticipated releases. I'm very excited to get to it. It has 2 stunning covers and I think it sounds fantastic. This is Heaven's Graveyard by Grace Curtis. It's a science fantasy tale of history and myth, magic and mystery. We are following an archaeologist, Cod, who is on the trail of anything to do with her hero, this mythological character. Then Cod's teacher contacts her having found something monumental, the ruins of an enchanted city slumbering beneath the soil. This could be the breakthrough they've always dreamed of, but with a war brewing, rival powers circling, and ancient magic stirring underfoot, the discovery soon becomes more trouble than it's worth. Even Cod starts to worry if some things are better left unburied. This is a sinister lesbian history mystery, bringing old magic to a dangerous new century. And I am completely and utterly sold on lesbian archaeologists with magic. Then for the final prompt on this show, the prompt is gay, and I'm going to be picking up A Necromancer's Guide to Arranged Marriages by Katie Nyquist. This is the 3rd book in the Scandals of the Gifted trilogy? Series? Put a pin in that thought. It's the 3rd book in the Scandals of the Gifted series. The first book was my favourite book I read last year. It was a 5-star. I rave about it in multiple videos. The Holy Maiden's Guide to Getting Kidnapped. And then just last month I read the sequel, How to Rule as a Bloodthirsty Tyrant, I think it might have been, which I enjoyed, but I didn't love as much. So I'm really hoping that this is going to be a return to form for me and it's going to be a 5-star. What I've just thought is that this is the last book in the trilogy, and so it could work as an alternate to Her Royal Highness. If that's a DNF, then this one could move in here, and then I just have to find a gay book, which I think might be an easier fill than specifically the last book in the series. So we're gonna put this one as potentially moving around, but definitely on the TBR. As a necromancer, Benoni has plenty of experience with raising the dead, wrangling angry ghosts, and hiding his powers, but he has no experience when it comes to love. He's trying to contact the ghost of his murdered brother and accidentally infects himself with a necromantic rot. His salvation appears in the form of Dragon Emperor Julong. As a shape-shifting dragon, Julong can eat most of his problems, but he doesn't know what to do about the army of angry ghosts running amok in his palace. In exchange for a cure for the rot, Julong commands Benoni to uncover who summoned the ghosts. The spiritual plague needs to be kept secret, and Benoni needs authority in the palace. A pretend betrothal covers both. I love this series. I love the magic in it. I love the casually queer characters. I love the arranged marriages and fake dating and pretense, and the way it does fantasy politics, but in a very light-hearted type of way. And pulls in some little social critiques as well, but again, never feeling like it is taking itself too seriously. So again, very, very high hopes for this one. On the bottom row, the first prompt is bisexual, and I'm going to be reading In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan. I think I have this on my Our Fantasy TBR as well, so again, we're doubling up. I don't know much about it, if I'm completely honest. The Borderlands aren't like anywhere else. Don't try to smuggle a phone or any other piece of technology over the wall that marks the border, unless you enjoy a fireworks display in your backpack. There are elves, harpies, and best of all, as far as Elliot is concerned, mermaids. Elliot is 13 years old, he's smart and just a bit obnoxious. When his class goes on a field trip and he can see a wall that no one else can see, he is given a chance to go to school in the Borderlands. It turns out that on the other side of the wall, classes involve a lot more weaponry and fitness training and fewer mermaids than he expected. On the other hand, there's Serene, heart in the chaos of battle, an elven warrior who is more beautiful than anyone Elliot has ever seen, and then there's her human friend Luke, sunny, blonde, and annoyingly likeable. There are lots of interesting books. There's even the chance Elliot might be able to change the world. This looks like we're doing the magical schools trope, and it's been a while since I read one, so I think this could be fun. Next prompt is transgender. Again, I'm lifting a book from the same prompt on the Our Fantasy board. For that, I picked The Sapling Cage by Margaret Killjoy. It's the first novel in the Daughters of the Empty Throne trilogy. It is a tale of earth magic, power struggle, and self-invention. We have a trans girl who desperately wants to be a witch, and when the coven comes to claim her best friend, she disguises herself in a dress and joins in her friend's place, leaving home and her old self behind. She soon discovers the dark powers threatening the kingdom, a magical blight scars the land, and the power-mad Duchess is crushing everyone between her and the crown. In spite of these dangers, Laurel makes friends and begins learning from the powerful witches in her coven. However, she fears that her new friends and mentor will find out her secret and kick her out of the coven, or worse. I heard nothing but rave reviews about this one when it was recommended on the Our Fantasy posts, so I have it bookmarked on Everand. I'm planning to listen to the audiobook, and yeah, I think this one should be interesting. Now here is the prompt that I spent the longest searching for. The intersex prompt is the one book where I really struggled to find something, and I had to pick something that gets good reviews online, it sounds interesting, but wasn't anything I had either on a previous TBR or had read the author before or had my eye on in some way. But this is Catty Wampus by Ash Van Otterloo. This is the magical story of a hex that goes haywire and the power of friendship to set things right. In the town of Howler's Hollow, conjuring magic is strictly off limits. Only nothing makes Delpha McGill's skin crawl more than rules. So when she finds her family's secrets in a book of hexes, she's itching to use it to banish her mama's money troubles. She just has to keep quieter than a church mouse, not exactly Delpha's speciality. Trouble is, Katie Berg-Hearn is hankering to get her hands on the spellbook too. The daughter of a rival witching family, Katie has reasons of her own for wanting to learn forbidden magic, and she's not going to let an age-old feud or Delpha's contrary ways stop her. But their quarrel accidentally unleashes a hex so heinous it resurrects a graveyard full of angry Hearn and McGill ancestors bent on total destruction. If Delpha and Katie want to reverse the spell in time to save everyone else in the Hollow from rampaging zombies, they'll have to mend fences and work together. The description doesn't actually say anything about it having an intersex protagonist, but I saw it mentioned on more than one list when I was looking into doing research for the prompt, so I'm fairly certain it counts, and if it doesn't I will have to try and find something else, but I think this will count. The next prompt is asexual or aromantic, and I'll be putting Aces Wild by Amanda DeWitt here. This is one, again, I've had sitting on my shelf for quite some time, back when I was more into YA than I am now, so another one that would be really good to read, decide if I want to keep it or unhaul it. What happens in Vegas when an all-asexual online friend group attempts to break into a high-stakes gambling club? Shenanigans ensue. We're following Jack, who is the son of a casino mogul and whose mother is then arrested for ties to organised crime. His mum was sold out and he knows by who. Peter Carlevo, a rival casino owner and jilted lover. Jack hatches a plan to find out what Carvelo's holding over his mum's head, but he can't do it alone. He He recruits his closest friends, the asexual support group he met through fandom forums. Now all he has to do is infiltrate a high-stakes gambling club and dodge dark family secrets while hopelessly navigating what it means to be in love while asexual. I love a heist story. I think this one sounds like a lot of fun and really kind of fast-paced. And then the very last square is non-binary, drag, or two-spirit. For this one, I have picked an author I love, an auto-buy author, but one of their most backlist books that I honestly don't know that I had ever really heard of. So this is Prosperity by Alexis Hall. This is steampunk, so again, not something I read a lot, and it looks like it has a vaguely Western feel set in the 1800s. Prosperity 1863, a lawless sky town where varlets, chancers and ne'er-do-wells risk everything to chase a fortune in the clouds, and where a gaslight gutter snipe named Piccadilly is about to cheat the wrong man. The mistake will endanger his life and his heart. The summary has a really interesting style to it, the way it's written. We've got thrill as our hero battles dreadful kraken above prosperity. Gasp as the miracles of clockwork engineering allow for a dead man to wreak his vengeance on the living. Marvel at the aerial escapades of the ether ship Shadowless. So I think the writing style here might be unusual. The last series I really genuinely enjoyed that was steampunk was Gil Carriger's books. So it'll be interesting to give this one a try. Again, it's on a bit of the shorter side. It's about 230 pages, so it's not a huge amount if I'm not absolutely vibing with it, but it does push me a touch out of my comfort zone and it fills the square nicely. So those are the 25 books. There were a couple that might get moved around, but I'm fairly happy with my TBR for this, and I think I have a good chance of finishing it since a decent number overlap with either other challenges, especially the Our Fancy Bingo, or are books that I've been really interested in reading for a while, or things that are coming out and I'm excited to get my hands on. Hopefully that means I will finish the challenge. Let me know if you're taking part in the challenge and let me know what you've picked, especially if you've got any you think I might be interested in or that fit some of those prompts that I was a little bit unsure of. If you're not taking part in the challenge, then let me know what you think of the books. Is there any here that grab your attention anyway? And if you have nothing else in particular but you want to show that you are here, then leave me a rainbow emoji. Thank you so much for watching. Check out Ren, Clint and Annie's channels if you can, and I hope that I will see you in future videos. Goodbye.